Hi, I'm Emily. At my grandfather's will reading, my father stared straight at me and said, "You're nothing," then demanded every penny of the $28 million left in my name. My sister nodded, my mother smiled. They locked me out of my own childhood home, but there's something none of them knew. I kept receipts. And one recording changed everything. Want to hear it? The first thing I noticed was the scent. Polished oak, leather-bound case files, and that old stale drip coffee sitting in the corner of the law office. It was the kind of smell that took you back, not in a good way, but to every waiting room you'd rather not remember. My palms were damp, and yet I'd convinced myself I didn't care. Years of distance had hardened me, or so I thought. Connor was already there, tapping his polished shoe against the walnut floor like it owed him something. Serena sat next to him, legs crossed, whispering behind manicured nails. Designer everything. I walked in with my secondhand coat and thrifted shoes. No one looked up, not even once. We all sat around a table that seemed too big for how close the tension sat between us. The attorney, Mr. Raymond, an old man with tired eyes and a voice like unbuttered toast, shuffled through some papers. No one asked how I was. No one ever did. He cleared his throat and said, "According to the final will and testament of Mr. Harold Whitmore," everyone leaned in. I stayed still. "The entirety of his estate, totaling $28 million, is bequeathed to Ms. Emily Whitmore." I didn't react, couldn't. Not because I was shocked about the money, but because no one had told me there was any money at all. Connor shot out of his chair. "What the hell is this?" Serena's mouth dropped open, too perfect to be real. "There must be a mistake," she whispered like she'd just seen a ghost. Dad didn't say a word at first, just stared. Then he stood, slow and deliberate, and walked toward me like he was circling prey. "You think you're special?" His voice dropped. "You're nothing without us. Nothing." He called me a parasite. Said I used Granddad's weakness against him. Said I'd always been a disappointment. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I just sat there and remembered. All those nights taking care of Granddad, feeding him, reading to him, holding his hand while everyone else lived their lives. No one visited. No one asked. But I showed up. Every single time. Dad had always said legacy was for the men. Daughters were just shadows in the background. Granddad once told me, "Sometimes the quiet ones see the most." Maybe he meant it. Maybe he finally saw me, even if it was too late to say it out loud. Connor slammed a fist on the table. "She doesn't deserve it." I looked around. Not one person said otherwise. Mr. Raymond cleared his throat again. "Shall we proceed with the paperwork?" I thought about leaving, just standing up and walking out the door, letting them all stew in their outrage. But then I heard my therapist's voice in the back of my mind. "You teach people how to treat you by what you allow." So I stayed. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I signed every damn paper without blinking. Their eyes followed the pen like it was stealing from them in real time. And still, nothing from them. No apology, no understanding, just resentment. But I wasn't the same girl they used to ignore. I could feel it starting inside me, a shift, a decision. If they thought I'd hand it all back, they didn't know me at all. As I walked out of that cold office, I knew I had just declared a silent war. By the time Friday rolled around, the silence in my apartment felt heavier than any outburst could have been. I sat hunched on my worn-out couch, legal paperwork spread across the coffee table like it might offer some clarity if I stared hard enough. I wasn't rereading it for the money. That wasn't the part keeping me up. It was the shock of it all, the sudden shift. One moment, I was invisible in my family. The next, I was their perceived enemy. I hadn't looked at my phone all day. I knew better. I knew they'd be scheming, venting, spinning their version of events. What I didn't expect What caught me was how vivid the memory still was. The way Dad spit near my feet. The fake gasp from Serena, like she hadn't spent her whole life performing. It clung to me, that moment, played on a loop, even as I tried to mute it. Eventually, I reached for my phone. I scrolled, half curious, half afraid. That's when I saw it. The family group chat was gone from my list. Just gone. I replaced with a new one titled Family Legacy, and I wasn't in it, not even a courtesy invite. No accidental ad, no, "Oh, sorry, must have been a tech thing." I sat there, thumb frozen above the screen, and I heard my therapist's voice again. Silence can be louder than screaming. Well, this silence was deafening. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. A text from Jenna, a coworker I barely spoke to outside of work. It read, "Emily, I'm so sorry. Someone posted this." I clicked the link without thinking. There it was, a photo I'd never shared. Me sitting beside Granddad's hospital bed. I was holding his hand, leaning in close. The image was grainy, but the moment was unmistakable. The caption? "This is how she manipulated her way to millions." I dropped the phone onto my lap like it had burned me. My stomach twisted. I'd never even posted that photo. I didn't know anyone else had it. It was supposed to be private, sacred. Connor, or maybe Serena. No way to prove it, but I could feel their fingerprints all over it. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I picked up the phone and called Mr. Raymond. When he answered, I didn't bother with pleasantries. If someone tried to challenge the will, emotionally, legally, could they? His pause was too long. They'd need strong proof, but anything's possible, Ms. Whitmore. That "but" stuck with me longer than the rest. I hung up without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. My eyes stayed open long past midnight, so I grabbed the journal I hadn't touched since Granddad passed. Flipping through the pages, one entry caught me, written during his final week. "All I want is to be seen, not saved." I closed the book. The room felt smaller somehow, and when I finally drifted off, it wasn't restful. I dreamt I was back in his hospital room, but this time, he wasn't speaking. I was the one talking, over and over. But no one heard me. No one even turned around. I woke up in a sweat, heart pounding. I whispered to no one, "They're not done. They're just getting started." The next morning, I forced myself out of bed, made some coffee, and opened my laptop to check on the tutoring site. A new review had popped up overnight. 1 star. No name. Just, "Wouldn't trust her with my kids. Greedy doesn't even cover it." A few minutes later, an email hit my inbox. "Greedy girls shouldn't pretend to be saints." No name, no sender, just venom. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed it out, punched holes in it, slid it into a folder I labeled Proof. I searched for defamation attorneys, found a few, read the bios, took down numbers, didn't call. Instead, I opened the voice memo app on my phone and hit record. They chose war. I'll choose silence, for now. But silence only works when both sides fear the truth. The drive from Pasadena to the nursing home was quiet, the kind of Sunday afternoon that stretches out thin and long. I held the steering wheel tight, every tap of turn signal like a breadcrumb of memory leading me back to where I thought I had peace. It was 2 days since I filed proof. The air smelled like jacaranda and early blooms, but they couldn't mask the weight that settled in my chest. By the time I pulled into the familiar lot, my heart felt like it had been bruised again. Nurse Lorraine was there, standing sideways beneath the covered walkway, holding a small, weathered cardboard box. "Something was left with us," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the empty parking lot. I stepped closer. The box had my name in shaky handwriting. I swallowed against the lump in my throat. Inside was a voice recorder, scuffed edges, batteries low, and an envelope, yellowed with age, sealed. Lorraine hesitated. Your grandfather asked that this come when you were ready. She didn't seem sure if I was. I wasn't sure either. But I knew. I had to open it. Back at home, I set the recorder on the kitchen table. My hands lingered over it before pressing the play button. His voice, frail and deliberate, drifted through the room. If you're hearing this, they've already turned on you, he said. The crack in his tone, in his trust, cut me open. He told stories of watching me from the doorway, helping quietly in the nights, caring when no one else bothered, that I was always the one who showed up, that when I thought I was invisible, he had only been saving strength for this moment. You knew, he said. You always did. Then, watch Serena first. It wasn't a threat, just warning. And in that whisper, I heard everything I needed to. Tears streamed down, not from pain now, but from something more fierce. Clarity. Everything I had believed, silenced moments, awkward apologies, shadows of neglect, was real, not imagined. I rewound the tape, played it again. When Granddad called me his heir, not because I asked, but because he believed, because he had no other choice but to trust the quiet one. Memory drifted backward, the last argument with Dad. I stormed out, nearly driving away. I believed his silence meant disappointment. Now I understood. He didn't have words. He had fear and pride. I was wrong about him being always angry. Sometimes people bow under weight even stronger than grief. I remember a phrase of his. Sometimes the truth doesn't come when you need it, only when you're strong enough to carry it. I held that in a fist tonight. The realization settled. This inheritance wasn't a gift. It was a burden he left me so the lies wouldn't carry on forever. And for the first time, I felt like the one who carried truth. I copied the audio file to a hidden folder, zipped it, backed it up, sent a message to my former student, expert in digital forensics. No plans yet to use it publicly. But I was preparing, like an architect building a foundation underfoot. I whispered to myself, let them keep playing dirty. I'll build in silence. It felt good to feel something fierce. Not rage yet. Something purer. Something determined. I closed my eyes. For the first time in a long while, I felt prepared. The Monday morning buzz at the office felt thinner than usual. I stepped inside, coffee still hot in my hand, but my chest already knew something was off. Marisol was leaning on the counter near the printer, flipping through papers like she always did. When she saw me, she gave a half smile and said, You saw Serena's name went up in the gala program, right? Her voice was light, teasing almost, but it hung heavy. I didn't flinch. No, I said. She blinked. Oh, well, it's probably just one of those admin mistakes. I walked straight to my desk and opened my inbox, scrolled through until I found the draft for the gala booklet. There it was, a full-page spread, photos, donor quotes, project milestones, and every line of credit went to Serena. My name wasn't there, not even in footnotes. I walked over to the project manager's desk. Why am I not listed on the gala booklet? They looked up, startled. It was a last-minute edit. The board wanted to streamline it. No big deal. I didn't argue. I nodded, walked away, and took screenshots of everything. Emails, drafts, timestamps. If they can erase my name this easily, what else are they willing to erase? By Friday evening, the invitations arrived at my apartment in a thick cream envelope. My name was printed at the bottom of the guest list. Serena's. Front and center, bold, in cursive. Honoring leadership in community uplift, it read. I ran my finger over the ink, then tossed the card aside. That night, I picked my outfit deliberately. Clean lines, deep blue, modest, professional. I wasn't dressing to impress. I was dressing to remind myself I belonged in every room they tried to push me out of. On the drive there, I passed my father's house, his SUV parked in the same spot as always, like it hadn't moved since I was 16. That house never looked like home, just a museum for ego. At the venue, chandeliers threw glittering light across the polished floors. People swirled in long gowns and tuxedos, glasses in hand, compliments in mouth. I walked in alone. Tess Ortega, the MC, stood at the mic, her voice full of cheer. And now we welcome Serena Alcott, whose tireless work brought this project to life. Applause, flashbulbs, and silence in my stomach. I sat down front. Guests leaned over to congratulate her. Donors nodded. Serena waved humbly, eyes flickering toward me without a flicker of apology. Then came the awards portion. This initiative represents the best of what we can do together, Tess said. Thanks to Serena's vision, we saw it through. A man in the crowd said, "That Serena really knows how to take the reins." I stood, slowly. My heart pounded, not from fear, but fire. I cleared my throat, loud enough. "Excuse me," I said. "I'd like to clarify something." Gasps. Forks paused mid-air. Tess froze, mic halfway to her mouth. I stepped forward, phone in hand. "This," I said, pulling up the screenshot, "was the original draft of this program. I led that project. For 8 months. These are my words, my designs, my nights and weekends." Serena didn't move. Her face went tight, like someone holding in breath just before a slap. I looked across the room. I've never needed the credit, but I won't be erased. I walked off stage without waiting for applause. None came. Later, in the parking lot, Mari caught up with me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought they fixed it. I didn't know they'd cut your name." "I know," I said. "It's not your fight." "But I should have said something." I looked at her. "Now you have." As I got into my car, hands still shaking, I caught a glimpse of Dad's SUV in the side mirror, still parked, still unmoved, but the stage, that had shifted. They stole the credit, but they can't steal my truth. I pushed the cafe door open and saw Rowena already seated with 2 cups of coffee. The late afternoon sun fell low across the table. I sat down, trying to steady my heart, trying to believe I was not imagining all of this. The week since the gala had been long. I was tired of shadows. Rowena offered a small smile. "Thanks for meeting," she said. We talked quietly, local news, my project, little things. I sipped coffee, felt the hum of life outside, cars, laughter, distant kids playing. Then they walked in. Dad and Serena, side by side, pretending surprise. My blood thumped. I braced. Serena spoke first, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Must be nice living off sympathy and dead people's money." Her grin was savage. Dad watched, expression blank. The cafe stilled. I felt every eye flick to me. I looked at Rowena. She pressed record. I looked back at Serena. Calm. "Excuse me," I said. "You heard me?" Serena smirked. "You heard what?" I drank in a deep breath. At least I didn't have to lie about who I am to get what I wanted. Her face fell. Dad didn't speak. Other customers stared. I pointed to a row of tables. "They saw you say it." I folded my hands. "That's your witness." Later, once the cafe lights dimmed, my phone buzzed. A distorted video showed a portion of the confrontation, staged, so it looked like I shouted first, like I was the aggressor. The caption, "Entitled heiress threatens sister in public." My heart slammed. I saw the edits, a close-up on my face, cut off just before Serena's insult. Then a screenshot leaked of a draft letter I'd written to Juno titled Final Position. It said plainly, "If they proceed further, I will take action publicly." It was twisted into a threat. My hands hovered over the keyboard. A cease and desist from Dad's firm arrived, accusing me of hostile conduct. I read it twice. I deleted my draft reply, but I didn't delete the truth. That night, I called Juno. Her voice was steady. "They're trying to flip the script before you can speak." She laid out a plan. Controlled release of the audio, statements from those who've seen the work I did, verifying with Granddad's records. I asked, "Do we fight in court or in public?" She said, "Depends on whether you want justice or transformation." Justice I wanted. Transformation I needed. Then Aunt Lolly called. Quiet voice. "They're nervous. They know you're holding back." She told me Serena asked about things left behind by Granddad. She hinted someone among cousins was looking through my social media. I asked, "If push comes to shove, would you testify?" Her silence lasted. Then, "I'll do what's right, not what's easy." I felt less alone in that moment, like a solid backbone returned. I sat at my desk. The envelope, the letter, the draft, they all lay in front of me. I titled a new document, Public Statement, When They Come for the Quiet One. I typed a few lines, removed them, then rewrote them cleaner, firmer. I recorded a voice note. This isn't about revenge, it's about refusing to disappear. When I stood up to stretch, I saw the envelope on my doorstep. No name, just printed. "We warned you." My fingertips tingled, my jaw clenched. The line had been drawn. I tore slightly at the corner of the envelope first. No mark, no return address, just a sealed flap that felt wrong before I opened it. My fingers were slick. I knew grief had left me raw, but this cut was different. Inside was a psychiatric evaluation report, confidential, from years ago. Highlighted passages about teenage anxiety, panic attacks after the crash. Details, nights I couldn't sleep, the doctor's notes emphasizing emotional instability. Underlined in red, unfit to manage significant responsibilities. My eyes burned at the words, heart pounded. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about my name, my dignity. Some hours later, I saw the file online, clickbait sites, posts with cruel comments. Is this who should control $28 million? Screen captures of underlined words, snarky captions. Unfit. Their ratings, their judgments. I could almost smell their contempt. I held my breath, tried to steady myself. My throat ached. My phone rang. I let it ring, let it wait. That recorder, Granddad's recorder, was in my lap, the one with his voice. I squeezed it like I'd been squeezed. Juno called. "This is illegal," she said. "Breach of HIPAA, privacy laws." She was quiet, professional. "We can fight back." But I told her, "Not now. I need time." My voice cracked. She understood. Later that night, after I'd locked the apartment door and turned off the lights, I recorded a memo. Words raw but clear. I told them about the crash, the fear, the nights I trembled but still showed up. They said silence was dignity. I say silence is permission. My voice wavered, not from weakness, but from standing up. I posted it, publicly. With that caption, I didn't expect much. Maybe some comments, some pity. What happened instead? People I taught, people I barely knew, they wrote, "Not unfit. We believe in you. Thank you for speaking up." Hashtags trended. Jash. Not unfit. I stand with Emily. The narrative shifted overnight. I read stories from strangers who had been silenced too, who felt like they had to hide because someone somewhere decided fear was their label. Then Serena texted, "So you're playing victim now?" I didn't reply. I typed a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt and posted it. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I saw news pieces digging into the leak. Someone close to the Bird family was quoted saying Dad accessed old hospital files by mistake. Juno filed for breach of medical privacy, legal demands, letters. Aunt Lolly called. Her voice cracked. Your grandfather would have said, "That's how you flip the damn script." I smiled. That memory of Granddad felt like sunlight piercing a storm. That evening, I sat by the window, tea growing cold between my hands. The sky deepened to a violet dusk. I wrote in my journal, I am not a diagnosis. I am a witness. Then my phone chirped. Anonymous text. You've made your move. We'll make ours. Screen darkened. But I didn't flinch. I drove up to the gate of my childhood home just after noon. The sun was hot, bleached over the stucco and peeling paint. I had come for the keepsakes, old letters, photo albums, anything that smelled like I once belonged here. But the gate was new, padlocked. A sign, private property. My hands shook. I felt an ache in my throat. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. Behind the glass, I saw Serena's silhouette, too reserved to meet my eyes. Boxes lined the yard, packed with things I once touched. I stood there a moment, chest tight, memories flooded, Granddad teaching me in the living room, the way light fell through the windows when I'd read aloud. That house was my map of safety once. Now it was a fortress made to keep me out. I pulled my phone from my bag and began filming. They think this house defines me, but I defined myself long before these walls, I said. My voice echoed off the driveway. Then I drove away, leaving gravel crunching under tires. Back at home that night, I scrolled through my feed. A new post from Mom. Sometimes the child you think you raised becomes a stranger. Comments rolled in. What did Emily do now? Maybe entitlement finally showed itself. Dad shared it. Serena liked it. Public shame dressed up like concern. I felt the sting. One mother's words can sting sharper than any accusation. I typed a message to my friend. Is this what war looks like? I waited. The reply. It's just the beginning. I found the blue ink note from Granddad buried in a drawer, faded, edges worn. You are not a mistake, the card read. My fingers traced those words. They were quiet in my hand, but louder than any roar on social media. I compared them to my mother's post. One voice of love from my past, one blade from my present. Rage came, but it was tempered. Clarity came instead. I decided I would respond, but with precision, not with hysteria. I called Mari and Aunt Lolly. Mari's voice heavy, but firm. We document this. Everything. Aunt Lolly listened. Long silence. Then, they're shaking. They know you have truth. Together, we drafted a statement. When your mother speaks for you, make sure she's speaking truth. I wrote a letter to a local news site, exposing the locked gate, the erased history, the public posts. I thought through every word, weighing them, precision over chaos. The next morning, I posted something. A side-by-side photo. 1. Me as a girl with Granddad inside the house. 2. Me standing outside that same gate, padlocked. Caption. Home isn't bricks. It's where someone believed in you. It went up before coffee cooled. It spread faster than anything I'd posted. People shared memories of Granddad. Neighbors, old friends, community pages. Serena posted under it. So much drama for a house. But this time, responses flooded in. Defenders, supporters. Voices I didn't even know. Mother reshared it. Sorrow in the tone, but too late. The damage visible. That afternoon, I caught my reflection in the window of a shop. I looked tired, but also different. I realized something had shifted, not the world, but me. The world now had to shift around me. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wouldn't disappear. That morning, Juno's call came before the sun had finished sliding past the horizon. I heard urgency in her voice. "You need to come in, now." I buttoned my coat over my tee and drove through streets that felt familiar but distant. The memories made the drive heavy. In Juno's law office, she held an antique brass key labeled W.E. Holdings, Private. She explained that it had turned up in a file left behind at my grandfather's secondary office, missed during the original probate search. I stared at it, thinking of all the shadows I'd walked through already. We drove to a small vault in Altadena, tucked behind overgrown hedges and a gate that creaked. Inside was a dusty deposit box, sealed envelope, a USB drive, a single-page notarized memo. Juno broke the silence by reading the memo. In the event of misrepresentation by any party during the probate process, the enclosed voice evidence shall serve as supplemental testamentary intent. I held the envelope lightly, like it might shatter. Back in my apartment, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. The file was time-stamped just a month before Granddad's hospitalization. I and Juno listened. Grandpa's voice was low but resolute. "Emily is the only one who ever listened. If anything happens to me, and if my will is contested, let it be known she's to inherit everything previously allocated to William and Serena." Tears came quietly. Not for the money, for the proof, for recognition, for the fact that in his final days, he'd been making arrangements to protect truth. The memo confirmed what the audio hinted. He had suspected manipulation by Serena and Dad. He'd drafted revisions, worried about his mental sharpness, about how to ensure his wishes were clear. Juno said it wasn't airtight, but deeply compelling under California's conditional codicil laws. I whispered, "If I do this, it's not just about legacy, it's a war declaration." I looked at a childhood photo, me with Granddad in his library, books behind us, light framing his face. I pulled it forward. I wrote in my journal, "Justice isn't revenge. It's recovery of what was always yours." I thought about Aunt Lolly's quiet strength, students who messaged me after the leak, saying they believed. I recorded a private message. "I will not become what hurt me. I will become what I needed." We filed a motion that afternoon. Motion to introduce the recording. Motion to stay current estate distribution. Juno prepared documents. I drafted a message for the community. Sometimes the loudest voices are the ones you never heard. Today, I found mine. I hesitated before sending, but then I pressed post. A headline appeared by evening. "Secret recording may upend 28 Melner's estate battle." Comments poured in, support, pressure, the world shifted just enough. I closed my laptop, felt the weight of it all, the pivot, not victory, but maybe leverage. The courtroom was quiet when I stepped in. I felt the wood's grain under my fingertips as I touched the pew, dressed in muted tones, not to show off, but to steady myself. The judge called the session to order. I heard my name, clear and real. The hidden audio recording, Granddad's final testament, was accepted under California's conditional codicil rules. The room tilted, emotionally, in that moment, relief and pain mixed. The ruling was clean. All inheritance rights returned to me. Serena and William were excluded. I nodded, clasped Juno's hand. No triumphal grin, just the release of holding truths too long inside. Serena rose, shoulders rigid. William stayed. They looked at me like I was someone they didn't want to believe in, but their reaction didn't unmake this. Later, I agreed to one final interview, on my terms. I spoke about boundaries, forgiveness, and what legacy truly means. You don't owe loyalty to those who confuse silence with submission, I said into the camera. Outside, the media storm raged. Hidden will, heir vindicated. Family feud ends in 28 years bombshell. But inside me, the roar was different, steadier. I read letters that came in, from young women, from elders, from attorneys who said they'd followed the leaks. One from a retired nurse. You reminded me it's never too late to reclaim your worth. I whispered thanks because it had been a long road. I returned to that vault where I had discovered the key and audio. I brought a new envelope, sealed, titled, "To the One Who Comes Next." Inside, Granddad's audio, a letter I wrote, a directive about truth over silence. It felt sacred to build something lasting, not money, but integrity. Over coffee with Juno, I told her I planned to fund a scholarship in Granddad's name for students who believe their voice matters. We shared a soft laugh, no exuberance, just the unburdening of long-held tension. A few weeks later, I drove to the lake house in Montana. The water was calm, reflecting late afternoon skies. In front of the fireplace, I opened the letter I'd never sent to my father. It said, "Dear William, I am no longer your daughter by inheritance, but I remain a daughter of dignity." I watched the flames consume the words, letting go pieces of hurt. Outside, my dog ran along the shore. I felt something untangle inside. Freedom isn't always loud. At the community center, I taught a class on estate planning, free workshops for those who fear silence, those who believe their stories are invisible. A student named Lisa asked me why I cared so deeply. I looked her in the eye. It's not about protecting assets, it's about protecting your voice. That evening, I locked the classroom door, walked down the steps, feeling a sunset behind me. The sky bled oranges and purples. I paused, breathed. For a long moment, I didn't think about the past. I thought about tomorrow, what I could build now, what truth I could leave behind. You can flip the script and still write it with grace.